You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. By going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com, you can make this possible. Black Voters Matter, they actually had their event in Flint, Michigan at a watch party. And so Latosha Brown and Cliff, they sent me this video to give you a sense of what they were doing on the ground there in Michigan.
Your administration has come under fire after hundreds of children living in New York City public housing tested positive for elevated levels of lead. As you know, we're not far from Flint, Michigan, where residents are still dealing with the consequences of having lead in their drinking water. How can you assure the people of Flint and across the nation that you are the right person to handle such a problem?
We have a huge problem, and it's decades old in New York, but here's what we've done about it. We've declared the eradication of all lead, literally ending the notion of lead poisoning once and for all as the goal of our administration, and we're doing something about it. Lead poisoning has gone down 90% since 2005, and we're going to literally bring it down to zero because we're going to go into every place, buildings, schools, public housing, and take out that lead, remediate that lead once and for all. And that needs to be done all over this country. Now, the federal government used to not take any responsibility for our public housing. For decades, they've been disinvesting in the public housing that was supposed to be a federal responsibility. That's part of why we have this lead crisis to begin with. But I'll tell you what you do when you're actually in charge of something. I'm in charge of the largest city in this nation. You do not accept the status quo. You fix it. And so we are going into every one of those apartments to make sure those children and those families are safe. And then we are going to eradicate that lead once and for all. And there should be a federal mandate to do the same for Flint, for Detroit, for every place in this country.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
It can be done.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Secretary Castro, why are you the right candidate to solve this problem? Please respond.
Well, because people don't have to wonder what
They said Black Voters Matter. They actually had their own viewing party taking place in Flint, Michigan. They were on the ground this whole week. Here's what took place.
Here today in Detroit, Michigan, as a part of the Black Voters Matter bus tour. And tonight we're going to hear from some voices all throughout this community who love where they live, but they also care about this country as a whole. And they want to hear and put forth ideas that are going to make this a place where they can live, survive, and thrive.
We're going to be talking about, from our perspective, what are the issues that we're concerned about, what do we prioritize, and what do we want to see in our presidential candidates.
Just a few miles down the road, we got all these candidates that are going to be debating, again, talking about some of these policies, and we're going to be listening. We're going to be listening closely to see if they're talking about our issues, and guess what? We're going to be polling our audience so that we can hear from them what is it that folks were talking about or not talking about that you wanted to hear.
We talk about minimum wage, about like the increase of the amount of money that a person gets. But what minimum wage actually does, it gives folks time. Give folks time to like do regular things that regular people do. Like my mother, for example. My mom worked 2-3 jobs. I played football in school. I did probably like 3 or 4 extracurricular activities, and she never could come because she had to work to actually provide for us. And even those small things add a value to someone's life that you can't measure.
The issue that is present on my heart right now is the candidates addressing climate change. That reason being is because I am in a community that has a high rate of pollution, and the pollution is having a serious impact on our lives.
My daughter, Darshell Cheney, was sentenced to 2 years in prison by Judge Miriam Bazzi, who did not really hear the case. That speaks of unjust and unfairness in our criminal justice system.
At this present time, I do not have a candidate in mind because I'm looking for a candidate that is actually full of integrity, honesty, and truth, and is going to fight for everyone because we all need justice, we all need peace, and we all need safety in our lives.
This state has power and this city has power, am I right? Yeah. This state has the power to decide the presidential election.
We are asking for environmental equity, of course, because we know we are deep-rooted in environmental racism, and that means that corporate greed is above community need.
Elections are just inflection points. They're not the beginning and they're not the end. They're just a point of inflection. Now, what happens in between that space depends on what it is that you and I do.
I think tonight was amazing. This is exactly what Detroit needed, to hear from Detroiters, to hear from Metro Detroiters around the issue.
The youth of this country are the next wave of freedom fighters, they're the next wave of organizing, the next wave of politicians. And as long as we show them the way, no matter what happens in this election, we'll have a country that cares about its constituents, cares about black people, cares about brown people, cares about queer people, cares about trans folks. And the list goes on. And we need a leader like that, and we need a country that respects and protects everyone. And until that day comes, I'm going to continue fighting.
Joining us right now, co-founders of Black Voters Matter, Latosha Brown and Cliff Albright. How y'all doing?
We are doing well. We are riding around in Michigan on the blackest bus in America.
You had the event last night. We just showed the video there. Was it? How critically important was it to hear just from regular, ordinary folk, not people who could have got a ticket to the event, not politicians, but for the people who are directly impacted by these policies?
You know, that's why we wanted to do the event. There were a couple of reasons why we wanted to do it. One is both Cliff and I, we were tired of media pundits trying to say what black voters wanted. If you listen to pundits, you would think that all of us excited about Biden. That's not what we're hearing on the ground. When they're doing these polls, Biden, it might be the candidate that has name recognition, of course, because he was the vice president during Obama administration. And so if they're asking these polls without context, of course, that's what they're going to get polling on. But what happens is it becomes the narrative that that's who black people are supporting and that's who they're excited about. And that's not what we're hearing on the ground. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to go into our communities more than necessarily this be centered around the president, the presidential candidates, but that it would be centered around our issues, that we would listen to our people, we would pull our folks together, listen to them, listen to their issues, and really get a temperature ourselves about what black voters want.
Cliff, obviously, when you look at the numbers, so much focus has been on black women voting Democrat, but the numbers don't lie. More than 85% of black men voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. How critically is it important to hear what black men want from the candidates?
Yeah, no, it's critically important. And what we found is when we do these events, you know, we get a great mixture, you know, both at the forum we did in Detroit, as well as the one that we did in Flint. We saw sisters and brothers together, you know, all expressing interest. And for the most part, as you pointed out, being very close in the issues that they were picking. And it's really worth noting that both nights there was really overwhelming feelings that the candidates that were speaking to more progressive issues were the ones that were winning. And that was we heard that from black men and from black women. So there's it's not an issue of black men being absent or disappearing, right? And recognizing, yeah, there's a gap. But as you said, 85, 87, 88, whatever the numbers are in any particular election, that still shows an overwhelming amount of unity in terms of what are the issues that we find important and what are the types of solutions that black men want to hear.
And obviously the next debate is going to be taking place TSU in September. Y'all going to be on the ground?
We are. We are going to be in Houston. That's so right. You know if they come to the dirty South, we're going to be there. Right. So we're going to Houston to somebody's favorite college. We'll be at TSU. Our goal is to be in Houston to do a similar thing. It was really powerful. You know, one of the reflections last night in Flint, there were a couple of things that stuck out for us. So when we were in Flint, we had it at a community center. It was working class folks that were there that were from the neighborhood and around. And it was interesting when Flint name came up, we were looking out in the audience to look at the faces of how people responded. And there wasn't like a sense of excitement or, oh yeah, they brought up Flint. What we did is we actually asked afterwards. Three things came up with some of the people. One of them said, you know, we don't want to be a soundbite. We don't want Flint just to be a soundbite, political campaign to someone. Another one said, we're happy that people are raising the issues of Flint, but we know this has happened all around the country, and we're hoping that this leads to something greater. And then the third one, actually, I talked about what is some of the work that they're doing, where some of the community have actually worked with the scientists that they met in Puerto Rico, and they're actually working on this. They've got this machine that can actually do condensation and pull moisture out the air to create clean water. And so what they did say consistently is that the Flint crisis is far from over. The pipes have not been replaced. Many of the folks we met at community meetings earlier that day were in bottled water. So here it is, 3 years afterwards, and we're still talking about the Flint crisis. And what's interesting to me is, why do you got to be a president? Many of those folks on that stage are they're U.S. senators.
Come on.
They're elected officials. Why do you got to wait to be president to deliver? If you're really serious about delivering to your people or delivering to our people, then you would show up. You just wouldn't show up. The question.
All right, Latosha Brown, Cliff Albright, we surely appreciate it. Thanks a bunch, and we'll see y'all at the next event.
We'll see y'all. We'll see you in Houston for the next debates, Roland.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Keep doing the good work.
Thank you.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. All right, folks, you heard me talk a lot about marijuanastock.org because I want to keep you informed of investment opportunities that make sense. We've all watched the growth of the cannabis industry. A recent report by New Frontier Data estimates the global cannabis market at more than $340 billion. We know that marijuana legalization is sweeping the country state by state. We also know that marijuana has a good cousin, the hemp plant, with a much higher concentration of CBD. That means hemp gives you all the medical benefits of marijuana without getting you high. Until recently, hemp farming was practically illegal in the United States and heavily regulated by the DEA. However, the 2018 Farm Bill changed all of that, making it legal to grow hemp CBD in the U.S. and creating one of the largest commodities worldwide. They need land to grow all of the plants. Folks, it's real simple. Now, our good friends at 420 Real Estate, their business model is simple. They buy land that supports hemp CBD grow operations and lease it to licensed, high-paying tenants. That's right, they are hemp CBD landlords, and you can get in on the action. Now, 420 Real Estate has decided to do something special for the Roland Martin Unfiltered family. Originally, the minimum investment level was $500, but right now you can invest in the crowdfunding campaign for as little as $200. That's right, as little as $200 up to $10,000. Again, this is a $340 billion worldwide industry that is still growing, and you can participate with as little as $200. To invest, go to marijuanastock.org. That's marijuanastock.org. Now back to your Roland Martin Unfiltered video.